Meet Marcus Yamamoto, a Yokai Watch YouTuber who has made several responses to people regarding the subject. Today we're going to be looking at his 6th response video, the second of his in a chain involving himself, Azelf 101, Naturad, and Jimmy Wetzel.
Jimmy made a video bashing Yokai Watch, Nitrorad made a video in defense of it, Ozzy commentated on that, Marcus came out of nowhere and kind of commentated on that, Ozzy then commentated on that video and Marcus responded again. It's also important to mention that the first degree in this chain, Jimmy, just barely appears in this video. This video is mostly just a back and forth between Azzy and Marcus.
So, are we seriously doing this?
Yeah. Us. And Sketch. And Night Eye. And Keyblade Master. And Saradust. And Ozzy. And Silver. And I think Doodle's joining them, so...
Well, crap, pressure's on. Let's make haste!
Hello everyone, it's Marcus Yamamoto, and SLF just released a response video for me to respond back to. Oh boy, what a joyous occasion. I'm smiling right now, if you can't tell.
Clearly.
Cause I honestly can't wait to do another response. Cause I just love doing this. Anyways, let's not waste any time and get right to it.
Okay, I'm just gonna point out how there isn't any context in here. Not to mention that the other degrees are left untouched, thus leaving those who may be checking your response without knowledge of your previous video or Ozzy's first video completely out of the loop.
Ah! High-pitched noises!
So I find this weird, to be honest. You sped it up to an absurdly fast level since it was boring, but, you know, you could have straight up cut it out as that was an easier alternative.
Also, now my skin is crawling, so thanks a lot, you twig.
Just roll the intro, I don't care at this point.
You know, I have reason to believe he kept Azelf's intro in solely so he wouldn't have to make one himself.
Hello everyone, Oz101 here, and today I'm targeting Marcus Yamamoto, a guy who does videos about games. That's about all I got on him. Anyway, remember that video I did on Nitro and Jimmy Wetzel?
And going,
well, Marcus
and
here
going,
found the video
and
and
going,
decided
and
to respond to it.
ha! Why'd you keep all of this in instead of just leaving it at the explanation you used to start the video?
I made a sandwich, cooked an entire pizza, paid my parents' taxes, sank Jonatic, and beat Sonic Forces, twice by the way, while this was ongoing.
And well, if you already couldn't tell, I may have found some issues with the video. So, let's get started.
Hello everyone, I'm Marcus Yamamoto. Now you're probably wondering why I have a picture of Orochi.
No, I'm wondering why you have an image on a black background, which you can't even count as black borders because you have shown the video you're responding to in full screen, but please, continue.
Also, is there a reason you're using the exact same avatar as yourself from earlier in the chain? Sure, you changed it shortly after, but that doesn't change the initial confusion people are likely going to have.
Well, I decided to continue this trend of responses within Yokai Watch. Considering the fact that Yokai Watch may or may not be in trouble with the slow sales right now than it was in the past, I figured it's time to get back and keep this franchise alive and out of the afterlife.
So, how exactly is you making these response videos keeping Yokai Watch alive? Somehow?
Yokai wa sundeni shindeiru.
NANI?!
Alright, fair enough. Though I have another question. Is this the only picture of Venok that you have? And yes, I said Venok. That's the name he got in the West, and I'm sticking with all the English names as far as I'm concerned. But back on topic, Marcus, you do know that you can add in more pictures of Venok, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but a quick Google search
Friendly reminder that
with
5th degree
tons
Marcus
of
has yet to
pictures,
actually
and
say
heck,
anything.
I even made an
Wait,
avatar
what?
set for him. And I'm not sure about you, but I don't think it's really visually entertaining to stare at the same single image of Venok for about 30 minutes. Now, is this a nitpick? At the end of the day, yes, but I feel like it would still help to put in a bit more effort to engage your audience. That and maybe find some way to get a background, but details. Point is, add in more pics. It's boring just to stare at a single picture.
You know, now would be a really good time to interject. But instead, you decided to include the part that isn't necessary to keep in for what you're about to say. Like, okay, if you felt the need to have all of this context, why not speed it up a little? And not like that crap you did in the beginning. Like, speeding out to where it's still understandable, but we aren't spending 2 minutes letting the video play out for no reason.
Hey look! I beat Sonic Forces for a third time!
Okay, is the game really that easy?
You know what? You're right. This is getting kinda old and boring to look at. I need to change into something better, something powerful, something superior. I got just the idea. Cue the music!
Bloody hell, the black bars are still there!
Oh. Okay. We spent nearly 3 minutes of your video waiting for you to interject for this. You know, this is where my point about cutting crap out comes back into play. For a moment where all you do is just say, I agree, and change your avatar to DOS-looking Mega Man over here, you really didn't need to have Ozzy's 1 minute of explaining what the video was about play through. Also, this design! No disrespect, but we really play a Mega Man DOS up in here.
Ah, much better. Now let's get this show on the road.
Hey guys, how's it going? You ready for a commentary? Cause I am. So as some of you, or all of you, and we are still going, like, a lot. Still
Well, at first I glanced over it, it soon became serious that I fell in love with it. It was a
going.
familiar
Wait,
ground,
why
but
does it
would
feel like
be
I've
so
been
much
here
Pokemon
before?
inside.
Okay, Marcus, what's the point of this? You just let the first minute and 45 seconds of my video play, and you didn't think that it maybe kinda dragged out for a bit? You could have either skipped to the parts that actually mattered, or at the very least, speed it up so that we aren't just watching my commentary on Nitro with you randomly coming in.
Alright, so, as Elf, I want to talk to you for a sec. While the point here is fine, it would have probably been even more effective if you had let the video play out just a little more, emphasizing just how much padding this is. Now, how does Marcus respond to this?
Well then, my apologies. But it's still important, right?
No, it isn't. If there was something to interject to, or maybe if there was something that would prove contradictory to something Ozzy says later on, then maybe it would be. However, neither of these are the case, thus, no, you baka.
I've been considering doing this video for a while now, and I just haven't because, well, look at how many people like me. And now look at how many people like my boy Jimmy here. Even if I managed to put together a killer argument, popularity is still on his side. A lot on his side. But I've decided to make the video anyway, because I like Yokai Watch, and I feel someone has to stand up and defend it.
While I do agree that I think someone does need to call out Jimmy on some things, even though you staying your bias or worst Pokemon kind of bites you somewhat, but then again try to show me a response that isn't biased, you don't need to worry about sub count. In fact, you'll usually be fine as long as you make a good argument. Keyword being usually. Sometimes you can get my commentary on Blaze. We don't talk about my commentary on Blaze. Ever.
Yeah, Nitro, Ezreal's right. It doesn't matter how many subscribers you have, you can still be successful and prove to the world that Yokai Watch is awesome. I mean, look how many subscribers I have. Does that stop me from voicing my opinions? Or make me think I'm not successful enough to prove to the world why Yokai Watch is awesome? Fuck no!
And you decide to butt in just to repeat my point. Wow, you're pointless.
But it's technically only one time, right?
Yeah, if you call one time about half the time Marcus pops up in the video. Seriously though, Marcus, I get if you agree with me, that's fine. But don't just keep repeating what I say to my target about half the time in your video. All it does is add filler that no one cares about.
But I was helping giving out some encouragement. I was just being inspirational, that's all. What's wrong with that?
Marcus, it wastes time, as it isn't needed. If you agree with us, Elf, you could have just skipped over and saved us some time. But, just so all my bases are covered, I'm not saying you can't agree with someone in an interjection. But if you aren't going to argue something in addition to agreeing with what someone, particularly your target, is saying, then the interjection has no reason to be there.
Also, while I get what you're trying to do with the voice distortion joke, it falls flat due to your single image of Venom just kinda there, not doing anything. And honestly, this would have been really easy to fix. Assuming you use Movie Maker to make your videos, all you have to do is just duplicate the image, crop the duplicate, then add in a red hue over the duplicate with something like GIMP or Paint.net. Then simply put in the pic where the distortion is. Or, alternatively, use a picture of Shadow Fennec, as he would fit the distortion better than Venom.
Is this better?
Well, now you actually sound like a robot, so there's that at least.
Sorry about that, I couldn't help myself. And if you're wondering what I'm using, I use iMovie and Animation Creator.
This really doesn't help your case, Marcus. In fact, it makes it worse. With that editing software, it's honestly embarrassing how your video looks. I mean, this is the level of me when I edited with Movie Maker. Really, this point doesn't excuse how piss poor your video looks, just saying.
And like with any Pokemon ripoff, there's gotta be an awful theme song that explains the entire premise of the franchise, or just says its name over and over.
Okay, Jimmy, I'll give you that much. The American version of the theme song, it sucks. It really sucks. But clearly, you have not heard Garo Garo Po, because that song, that's some catchy shit. And it does accompany the majority of the American airings of the TV show, so you're half right with this one.
Okay, but how does that debunk Jimmy's point that the Swampy Marsh theme is still utter trash to him? I mean, you even agree with him, so why bring up Gara Gara Po in the anime when they have nothing to do with the fact that the song that is in the English release of the game is bad?
Okay, at first, I did think the American theme song was bad, but it did kind of grow on me, especially with the remixes and the sequels. And if you like the Japanese song, then that means you appreciate Japan.
Oh my god, that statement's so bloody stupid. I could come up with at least a handful of more likely reasons for someone liking the song, but it wouldn't change the fact that it really doesn't make itself wrong. In fact, you're basically repeating Naturad's point.
Marcus, dude, focus on what we're saying and try adding in something that actually would matter. Otherwise, you're just wasted space.
I'm not wasted space! And what I was trying to say is just don't judge a book by its cover!
You're misinterpreting the point. She isn't saying you're a waste of space. No, she's saying that the point doesn't matter in the long run, and thus your point is a waste of space, not you.
Boy, aren't you getting defensive over the fact that if you're going to keep making interjections that don't argue anything at the end of the day, then there's no reason for you to even be here. And even if that's what your point was, it counters nothing Azelf has said. No, screw you. You don't get to use talent to tank engine.
Okay, Nitro, this is nice to know. Can even help understand QB's and Ramamon's designs, but you do realize what Jimmy was doing? That was a joke.
Yeah, a joke. Like how my fist to Jimmy's face is gonna be a joke. 'Cause it's a punchline. Get it?
Man, you didn't even try.
No, but in all seriousness, there is something that Nitrorad truly shines upon, and that's the yokai. They are not made up like Pokemon and Digimon. They are actually real. They existed for hundreds of years in Japan. And look, just because you live in America doesn't mean that they don't exist.
Oh my god, this guy thinks ghosts are actually real.
Okay, while the overall concept of yokai are not made up unlike Pokemon or Digimon, yeah, Marcus. Yokai, a class of supernatural monsters, spirits, and demons in Japanese folklore. Remember that last line. Folklore. Folklore. The traditional beliefs, customs, and stories of a community passed on through the generations by word of mouth. Now, nowhere in this definition is it stated that folklore isn't real, but to be clear, folklore is usually used in a sense where it is implied that something isn't real.
I mean, by this logic, I could say Bigfoot is real and shrug off any evidence of the contrary from you because you don't live in America. At least that's the impression I've been getting from what you've been saying. And I don't even have to tell you how stupid that is.
Yeah, okay, whatever. What does this have to do with the polemic again? Oh yeah, that's right. Nothing.
It has everything to do with it.
No, it doesn't. Ozzy was talking about how Nitro missed Jimmy's joke, and you talk about how yokai apparently exist. I thought our parents taught us to stop believing in things like yokai and fairies and Arkansas, because none of those exist.
You going to explain what that has to do with the point? No? Well, that's just fantastic. I'd also like to bring up you misinterpreted what Naturad's point was. He wasn't saying that yokai are real in the sense that they're actually real, but real in the fact that these creatures exist in Japanese mythology rather than just being made up for the games. And while yes, Pokemon aren't real, they are based on real things, ranging from animals to objects to human mythology. And Azelf brings that up shortly after you cut back to her video.
Yokai are real. They are just as real as us humans. They are real even in today. You know what, Gaijin, could you explain this?
The design of the yokai are both charming and accurate.
No, frick you, and frick your media clip.
You take that back about Gaijin!
You could have easily just said what Gaijin said while citing him. But nope, let's just take a media clip that quite literally adds nothing to the discussion at hand. That's a good idea, right?
Yeah, well, that's what she said.
Oh, fuck you.
Also, I'm skipping the rest of this since Marcus kinda just rambles about what yokai are, which really isn't needed considering how this doesn't affect how a creature is designed or how Nitro took the joke too seriously. At all. That and he's calling yokai equal human beings, which is just another nitpicky rant I really don't want to get into.
Hey Azelf, I have a question. Have you ever even read the Yokai Watch manga? Or watched the Yokai Watch movies? Because they do a good job explaining about the human-yokai relationship.
What does bringing up those things even have to do with what Azelf said? If we're talking exclusively about the games, then the manga and movies would be irrelevant to the discussion. In fact, it would make the argument look worse, considering the audience would be forced to consult supplementary material to understand something that should be explained in the games, provided that detail is even important to begin with, and that's bad storytelling.
Not to mention, Ozzy already explained that the whole topic of yokai being real had absolutely nothing with the conversation, so why are you still going on about this? By the way, I'm boycotting the next movie. Kataro's in it and he ruined Dragon Ball Super, so keck.
But I hate you! You never visit me!
What was that? I'm sorry, what was this here for? It really doesn't have anything to do with what you were saying a minute ago.
You know someone's just using media clips for the sake of using them when what clip they use doesn't even work in the context of what was said. You're lazy is what I'm getting at, Marcus.
More lazy than Jonah?
It actually takes effort to plagiarize.
Excuse me, it does?
More than just finding a random media clip off the internet and shoving it into your video because you can't be bothered to even attempt to make your own jokes half the time.
Now, here's a funny story about this. I was going to do a commentary on Jimmy's video, and when I got to this point, I pointed out how Kibi and Ren were differently designed, from the number of tails to even how the cover scene was used on the two differently, basically making the same mistake as Nitro. I think this is because Jimmy's acting, as stated before, kind of makes the joke fall flat, as it can convey a more serious tone, thus leading to people assuming he was serious when he wasn't. But looking back on it, the joke is an obvious poke at how the two share the same color scheme. Heck, you even pointed this out, Nitro, so... Not saying I don't understand why you came to this conclusion since I came to it myself before, but I should just be careful on these parts next time.
Honestly, I don't care. Blame history.
For one, Nitro's mistake or your pointlessness.
Yeah, this was just filler. I think I might have been either hungry or bored at that point.
Really? This implies either one of two things. You're claiming to be hungry and or bored from scripting the editing, which considering how long this video is would have taken a long time, and seems kinda BS, or the more likely possibility, it wasn't actually scripted. That would explain a lot, actually.
Come on, A. We all know the CanCom only fell apart because we were all malnourished.
I was thinking more along the lines of my history of fit. Oh wait, that's Sonic!
Right, we'll say that.
Riveting gameplay. Like, you gotta push a button, and hopefully you'll catch the bug. It's so fun.
Wow, Jimmy, that almost sounds like a game that you actually like. But no, I'll give you this one. The bug and fishing minigame, they suck. They really suck. They're not fun, they're imprecise, and it's not a good time. But they don't exist in the better half of the game. They're completely optional most of the time, and they don't really interrupt the game that much.
And you cut off Jimmy again, just so you can say you agree. Wonderful. Also, I can make the argument that the minigames are required in some way. For one, a tutorial for them is at the start of the game and can basically be seen as a preview to how you get some of the yokai, since you play a very similar minigame when finding yokai in the real world. And heck, you have to in order to get some of the rare yokai out there like Robonyan. You also have to play the minigame if you want to get certain items, considering you can trade in bugs and fish for points at jungle hunters, which you can then use to get really good items to help you. Oh, and if there is a possibility that Jimmy is a completionist, keyword being if, then that can possibly include completing every request you get in the game, including one where you have to fish for a rare fish for a guy near the fish store.
I love the bass reference. I can see you like Rockman just like me, and that's cool. I think I found my role.
Please, for the love of Lord Emma, never flirt with me again.
Calm down, I wasn't trying to flirt with you. I'm just amazed that I found another girl that actually likes Mega Man, considering the fact that this series is targeted towards a male audience.
Do I really want to keep going on with this? Like, I could be doing at least 100 better things right now, but nope, I gotta deal with the guy who continues to make dumb statement after the next. Okay, let's go down the list. 1. Calling Azelf your role in this context along with laughing at the end gives the implication you were indeed flirting with her, or worse, and that's not okay. 2. Another girl, implying that you've either met girls before that have liked Mega Man, in which case how is Azelf liking Mega Man a surprise, or you're saying that you yourself are a girl and well, I'm gonna have to say I'm skeptical on that. Either way, it's terrible wording. 3. What makes you assume girls wouldn't like Mega Man? I mean, clearly you don't understand how girls tend to flock to Mega Man's cutesy design, hence a lot of the fan art I've seen of the character. 4. You can make a reference to something and not necessarily like it per se. Like, I made a Street Fighter reference in a video before and I have a pretty mad opinion on Street Fighter. I swear to Christ, I'm this close to busting out my shotgun and smacking a pupper.
Besides, you're not Axel.
No, I'm Rockman.
No, we are not doing this again.
But Axel is a robot.
No, Axel is a Reploid. A new type of Reploid. And yes, I know that because I did my research. I'm not big into Mega Man X, but at least I did my research.
Marcus! No! I need to point out how a Reploid is basically the same thing as a robot. Yes, in the universe of Mega Man X, the term Reploid is given to the type of robots who are made with free will. However, they are still robots. Made of metal, having been built. It's like the difference between a yokai and a ghost. There may be some, but there really isn't much of a difference, as they're both spirits.
Yes, Baldwin McNose here explained the difference between ghosts and yokai in Azzy's video, but let's be real. They're basically two regions' different interpretations of the same concept.
Yes, the bug and fishing minigame is a nuisance, but like what Azel said, it's required.
No, I said it was required in some way. The keyword here is some. While yes, if you wanted to do all the requests and get all the items, you would have to face the minigame at some point. You don't need to face it if you're just playing the game normally. At most, you need to face it at least 3 times at the start of the game, then you'll more than likely be playing the minigame for the yokai. And said yokai minigame is still different enough, as instead of tapping on the bug and trying to land on a block to get it, you have to chase the yokai in a circular pattern until the ring around the circle is complete. I was simply playing devil's advocate for how one could see it as required. That doesn't really mean it is required, since aside from the 3 times at the start, you can go through the entire main story and post-story without having to catch a single bug or fish. Marcus, you have played the games, right? Right?
I swear, he's gonna take this literally. He's gonna take this literally. He's gonna take this literally!
I believe I was referring to the tutorial of the game, in which you are required to catch bugs and fish at the start of the tutorial.
No, you didn't, you revisionist fudstick. You said nothing about the tutorial of the games. Azalf did, yes, but you did not.
Also, yes, I play the games.
God damn it, why?
I'm going to spare you all, Marcus, proving to Azzy just how much of a Yokai Watch fan he is, as humorous as it is that he actually felt the need to.
Now, granted, this does reveal a flaw in Jimmy's video. The constant comparisons towards Pokemon Yokai Watch get very, and I mean very, annoying to deal with. I understand that Yokai Watch is similar to Pokemon. I won't even deny it. Heck, I would be fine if Jimmy compared it to Pokemon a few times. But he does it so often, it gets annoying, especially since, while yes, you are supposed to voice your opinion in a review, it seems like you're shoving your bias towards Pokemon down the viewer's throats. It's like, we get it! Yokai Watch has some similarity towards Pokemon. Now tell us something about the game that isn't based off of Pokemon.
Yeah, Azel's right. This is why I hate Pokemon. People that like Pokemon get so wrapped up in their ego, and they think that they're the superior ones. Pokemon is older, so that means we are better than you. No, that is not true. Just because something is older doesn't mean that they're superior.
Okay, I don't know what's worse. The fact that you think Jimmy is saying he's superior because Yokai Watch is ripping off of Pokemon when he's not, or the fact that you hate a game series, no, a franchise, because of a fan base when the fans don't really affect any elements of the games.
Oh yeah? Look at this! This is the entire playlist of the Japanese Yokai Watch episodes from the anime. Now, what's wrong with this picture?
That you watch your anime via somewhat sketchy means?
It's the fact that almost all the episodes aren't subbed!
Really? Because roughly 4/5 of the episodes listed here are subbed, with the only Raws being near the top and most recent. Granted, he could be referring to the other 99 episodes that aren't being shown here, but given how this page is laid out, should I really expect the page of the older episodes to do anything except hurt his argument?
A total of 192 episodes and 2 movies completely unsubbed!
And just how are we supposed to draw that conclusion with the information conveyed? And, you know, it could just be the website you're using. Other clients might have those episodes subbed. If it's got a big enough cult following, there's bound to have been at least fan subs.
And you want to know who caused this problem? Pokemon! Fucking Pokemon! They are the real threat, and they piss me off! Pokemon is preventing Yokai Watch from advancing! Now, why am I telling you this? Because Yokai Watch deserves to be watched and understood on an international level. That's what Hino wanted.
Who?
Game designer of Yokai Watch and CEO of Level 5 Games.
He wanted to share Yokai Watch to the world, and you fuckers ignored his love!
Is it truly out of love, though? Because of what I could find about him talking about Yokai Watch, all I saw was mentions of performance and how it was designed to sell as many copies as possible. It seems to be more so a well-thought-out business scheme over actual passion for the product.
Okay, I get it. Pokemon is popular, but what about Yokai Watch? Give Yokai Watch a chance to shine. But no, they rather be like,
we hate the light. Destroy yokai. Destroy them all.
Alright, I'm gonna stop your tangent right here. There's a completely valid reason why Yokai Watch has been overshadowed by Pokemon. Both games are published on Nintendo devices. Take the average consumer. Since the games are very mechanically similar at face value, they would likely assume it's some cash grab Pokemon clone and therefore won't touch it. This is especially the case here in the States with how Yokai Watch had quite the rocky start. The bottom line is that Nintendo is cannibalizing the sales of Yokai Watch because its main series titles are being launched on the same device as Pokemon, the 3DS. At the end of the day, it's a result of some poor decisions in marketing combined with consumer consensus. It really isn't anything to get worked up over. It's like if I were to get mad that Vanguard isn't as popular as I'd like it to be because Yu-Gi-Oh! Exists and has been around at least a decade before it, which therefore makes it a lot more recognizable and popular. Now granted, this may not be the best example coming from me, but you get my point.
Either way, this is stupid. Particularly the latter notion, since you're broadly generalizing all Pokemon fans for not liking Yokai Watch because they're superior due to age, when they could just have actual reasons for not liking it outside of the ripoff complaint.
Azelf, have you ever watched WatchMojo.com's Pokemon vs. Yokai Watch video?
You mean that corporate channel that makes videos for the lowest common denominator to get that sweet ad revenue?
God damn it, now I'm having flashbacks.
They were completely biased towards Pokemon, making everyone believe that Pokemon is superior than Yokai Watch! And based on the ratings in Jimmy Wetzel's Yokai Watch review, everyone agrees that Yokai Watch is a Pokemon ripoff! And it's not a Pokemon ripoff! Jesus fucking Christ, how dumb are you?
Methinks you're a bit too passionate about a series where you befriend ghosts.
No, but seriously, calm your freaking tits. I've never seen somebody this pissed over nothing since the final shot. Also, apparently, because the like-dislike ratio for Jimmy's video and Yokai leans towards the like, automatically means all of those people are Pokemon fans, who believe that it's a ripoff. Have you not thought to think that, well, I'm sure that just shows that the general consensus loves the video, but that doesn't mean all of them agree that the series is nothing but a Pokemon clone? Please, for you to shout, how fucking dumb are you, after spouting something like this, makes you come off as a fucking immature child! Also, how dare you call a precious cinnamon roll a name like that? You will suffer the consequences.
Or maybe they do like both Pokemon and Yokai Watch. Like me! I mean, really, if you couldn't tell I like Pokemon from my name, I am very disappointed in you.
No, you can't love both things. You can only choose one. You have to pick one over the other, because that's life. White Birthright or Black Conquest. Team Blues or Team Colonel. Gonzo Spirits or Hunky Souls. Marvel or DC. Mario or Sonic. Pacifists or Genocide. Hero or Scrapper. There is no in-between or both. There's only one.
Insanity. The state of being seriously mentally ill or madness. Sentence example. Lunatic the game lost his goddamn sanity because Marcus Yamamoto refuses to accept the idea that people can like two things the same as if life is built around choosing one around the other. If you excuse me, Marcus, like the good book says, you can like two things the exact same. For frick's sake, the way you're trying to push this onto Ozzy is really annoying and just shows how your childish love for yokai can make you.
Where the hell did you get that dictionary?
Please don't tell the police.
Wee woo wee woo.
Crap, I can't have a police record.
And no, join Smash is not a fucking option.
Boy, I seriously hope you're joking. But even in spite of that, for a majority of those examples, you can buy both games, even though you weren't calling many of these by the names you put on screen, but details. And for the Mario vs. DC and Mario vs. Sonic examples, you can like both. For the Undertale and Epic Mickey examples, you could just wipe the memory and play the game again for a different path. Now, do you want me to tell you why this argument of yours is done to begin with? Because we're talking about liking two pieces of media here. So only your Marvel vs. DC and Mario vs. Sonic examples are even remotely relevant. But as I stated before, it's stupid to try and argue that you can't like both to some degree. Yeah, you're likely to like one over the other, but that's not what the argument is it? Also, why did you use the Japanese version of the coin reveal trailer for Smash 4 when the English one was readily available? Ignoring the fact that this is you essentially playing a media clip for the sake of playing a media clip?
I dream of a day when Yokai Watch and Pokemon can live in peace. Now why can't this war end like Mario and Sonic? Oh wait, that's right! Because Pokemon only cares about glory, fantasy, generic mediocrity, and satanic shit! There's no room for friendship in Pokemon!
You know that most yokai in Japanese mythology are evil, right? Or at the very least mischievous.
Not to mention, friendship is one of the main freaking themes of the Pokemon franchise. Hell, in some of the games, I bet you that's like half of the dialogue, right, eh?
Wait, what?
Heck, I know this is somebody who only recently started playing the games with Moon. The bonds between fellow trainers, the bonds between family, the bonds between trainers and Pokemon.
Am I like the only guy who got Sun instead of Moon?
Heathen.
Hey, Post Mr. A here. I realize that friendship is also an applicable concept in the games, because your friendship with certain Pokemon directly affects the strength of a handful of moves, and is the influencer behind some Pokemon evolutions. So yeah, safe to say that friendship is a deep-rooted concept in Pokemon.
So until people prove to me that yokai watching Pokemon can live in peace, I will never stop!
They can, actually, and the only reason they don't seem to be is because you're making a fuss about Yokai Watch not ending up as popular as Pokemon. This argument of yours is literally self-inflicted. Azzy, sweetheart, that's not proper grammar. Or, wait, do I blame Keyblade since he edited this? Keyblade, sweetheart.
And Street Fighter may be Capcom's fighting mascot, but that's nothing compared to Rockman, because he tells a story about the humans and robots getting along. What does Street Fighter do? Nothing. Just fighting and porn.
Okay, well, this example is stupid. First off, Street Fighter and Mega Man are both different genres of video games, i.e. one is a 2D fighting game series, while the other is a 2D action platformer.
Yes, but both of them are popular Capcom IPs. But Rockman's better.
Really, the only thing you have here is age and Capcom. Otherwise, you're comparing apples to oranges. Next, I want to argue how the Mega Man series covers robots and humans living together. Sure, games like 7, Base, and 10 cover bits and pieces.
Well, 10 didn't really cover much, but 7 only covered a little bit. Okay, I give up. Sorry about all the trouble. I'll go quietly. I don't trust you, Wily. I'm gonna do what I should have done years ago. You forget, Mega Man. Robots cannot harm humans. Rockman and Forte do cover a lot about the human-robot relationship.
Really? I could have sworn it was just this robot named King jumping out and claiming that the robot should rule over humans, and that was about it. There really isn't anything about humans and their relationship with robots, other than maybe Mega Man's speech at the end that humans created robots and they should be respected for that.
But the one that truly shines is this. Take it away, Gaijin.
Marcus, why do you forsaken us so? I mean, you could have explained this yourself and very swiftly. You don't need Gaijin here, at all. You're just throwing in media so you don't have to give an explanation yourself. Frick, this isn't even a tough topic to explain by yourself. Seriously, all it takes is a summary and you could probably explain this yourself in very quick time.
This is the second time he specifically used Gaijin to make a point for him, by the way. Also, when the fuck did this become about Mega Man? I thought we were talking about Yokai Watch, damn it.
Shows how much you've been paying attention.
Mega Man 9, the whole idea behind it is that a bunch of Light's robot masters want to continue to be useful, but they're about to hit their expiration date and basically be tossed into the fire, broken down, deactivated, whatever you want to call it. And they don't want to. So, what are we as people gonna do when we, in real life, get to that point where robots are like, well, I don't want to be decommissioned. I want to continue to live. I want to continue to be who I am. Are we going to have the right to say that? Are we going to have the right to say, no, you're a machine, you're nothing more? I mean, because it's not true anymore.
That's why Mega Man 9 is my favorite! Best storytelling, best robot masters, best music, all of that. Great game, aside from 2 and 8. And if we want to go really deeper, then Gaijin's gonna have to explain this one as well.
Oh my gosh, stop making Gaijin explain everything for you.
By the way, to further illustrate everything that I've talked about, get this series. Get Spiritus Ex Machina, because it does a better example explaining all of this better than I do.
Agreed, Gaijin. Agreed.
You guys have no idea how much I want to strangle Marcus on the sole basis that he keeps using clips taken from other videos to try and make points for him. Especially when he could very easily save time by saying these things himself and simply referencing these other videos when absolutely needed.
but the overall story of the series never really delved into the relationships that humans and robots had. Now, maybe you could be referring to the franchise as a whole rather than the classic series, since both the X series and the Zero series are more story heavy and focus on the subject much more thanks to the Mavericks and Cyber Elves, but at that point you should have clarified that you meant the franchise as a whole, since you really only seem to be talking about the classic series.
Yeah, I was kind of too focused more on the classics. The X does shine on the human-robot relationship, but I prefer the classics.
And finally, stating that all Street Fighter has done is fighting and porn.
Yes, I know that the Street Fighter porn is done by fans.
Well, put it simply, Street Fighter has never done official porn, and thus your claim that Street Fighter also does porn falls flat on its face. Seriously, if we use that logic, then Mega Man also does porn, as for frick's sake, there are many erotic doujinshi for the Mega Man series. And yes, I've read them. Every single one.
Aren't you 15?
Did you say something?
Now, Pokemon may be older, but that doesn't mean that Yokai Watch is not superior. Yokai Watch is better in the fact that they are realistic.
Ah, yes, because I totally remember when I magically got a watch that allowed me to see ghosts, and use them to make people do all kinds of weird things before traveling through what is basically hell to seal a powerful being. Yep, because that's realistic. And that's just if I wanted to be in the time frame of Jimmy's review when it came to the American releases. If you want to go to our time, Marcus, then tell me, when the heck did you have to travel back in time 60 years to help your grandfather beat a tribe of malevolent yokai from taking over the world? Or if you want to be where Japan is, how about moving into a new country only for wanting to be attacked by zombies before having to deal with aliens? Yeah, okay. Remind me how Yokai Watch was realistic again? Oh, but I meant it had realistic settings like what Gaijin explains after my statement. Pokemon doesn't have that. Really? So you're ignoring how the settings of New York are based off of New York? What with locations like Cassadell City, Sky Arrow Bridge, and the battle subways? Or how about Kalos in France with locations like Lumio City, Parfum, Hamlets, and Shavanoa Castle? Heck, even older regions like Kanto and Johto are based off of the Kanto region and the Kansai region of Japan respectively, right down to the location of the two regions. You ignoring the times when Pokemon does this honestly makes you look just as bad as Jimmy, if not worse, which is really surprising considering how biased Jimmy was. Marcus, get your subjectivity out of our face. I'm sure it's illegal to do that in like 30 states at least.
Just 30?
Yeah, surprisingly it's allowed in California.
I didn't mean realistic as in, oh yes, I can actually do that, because somehow it's logically possible. I mean that it relates to the real world. You know what, maybe realistic isn't the right term. Maybe I should just try relatable instead.
You know that being relatable can apply to any piece of media, right?
A good example of this would be Thomas and Friends. Okay, please, just hear me out on this one.
Alright, fine, but you're treading on thin ice.
God damn it. Now, the current episodes may have made up stories compared to the Railway series that Audrey wrote, and yes, they're based on actual events, but they're still realistic and relatable. I'm not saying that trains actually have faces, which, let's be real, that'd be fucking awesome. For the Thomas fanbase anyways. I'm saying that the writing team and the railway consultant do a good job in emulating a realistic railway with relatable human aspects. And oh my god, I can't believe I'm actually going to say this, but even Big Bang Theory has an element of realism, with its inclusion of science and popular culture, thanks to its science consultant. So you see, Yokai Watch does a good job emulating its convenience stores, gacha machines, luck, and everything else that the game throws at you. It emulates our fucking world.
Then again, Ozzy already explained that you saying that Pokemon is realistic and is better than Pokemon because of that falls float in space, because just like Yokai, Pokemon sometimes is based off of real world locations. The big city of Unova to New York City, the elegance of Kalos to Paris, the diversity of Alola to Hawaii.
Hey, you be nice to Gaijin Goomba. He loves Mega Man too, you know, and culture is everything.
Again, this is supposed to be your video on why Yokai is such a great game. Considering you're just playing other people's clips to explain it for you makes you come off as lazy, not only because you're just copy-pasting other people's stuff into your channel, it also shows that you're putting very little effort yourself.
Relatable characters and spirits that are real.
Ignoring your last point, as I can easily refer to what I said earlier, how are the characters of Yokai Watch relatable?
Are you fucking serious?
Let her finish.
How are the characters of Yokai Watch relatable? But yet, how does Pokemon not have relatable characters, seeing as I can easily point to Lily, Hugh, and Volley as examples of this not being the case? And that's ignoring the fact that relatability is subjective. subjective, meaning that while you might find some of the characters in Yokai Watch to be relatable, that doesn't mean that Jimmy will see it that way.
And since the rest of Azelf's argument makes the next thing you're going to say moot, we're going to be skipping over it. But to TDLR, the yokai themselves aren't relatable as characters because they only have one trait to them. The same applies to Pokemon. When talking about characters, Azelf is referring to the human characters, as they actually have at least multi-dimensional personalities.
That's ignoring the fact that relatability is subjective, meaning that while you might find some of the characters in Yokai Watch to be relatable, that doesn't mean that Jimmy will see it that way. Marcus, how much weed are you smoking and where did you get it? I'm not asking for a friend, I'm actually concerned about your health.
The only drugs I take are Skittles. And really, relatability is subjective. That is fucking retarded. That just screams, I hate my life and I want to fucking die.
Yes, Marcus, relatability is subjective. Different people relate to different things. Something that might resonate with one person may not resonate with another. Relatability is still there, but that doesn't mean everyone will relate to it.
Quests that are not a chore. They are actually pretty important to do, because you're being helpful.
Not really. Aside from the main story objectives and the Yokai Watch upgrade requests, you really don't need to do any of the other requests. And that's pretty aside how some of the tasks in the main story could be seen as a chore to some. For example, you often have to go out of your way to do fetch quests in order to help someone out, like getting one cap of food or finding underwear for your watch. And considering the amount of times you have to do it in the main story, it can become very tedious, especially if you're the type of person who just wants to get on with it. And if Jimmy is that kind of a person, well then he's gonna have the fun bogged down for him. Simple as that.
But the important thing is that you're being helpful.
This motherfucker.
I hate to break it to you, Marcus, but if being a good Samaritan hinders the gameplay experience, then people are not going to enjoy it, plain and simple. And well, gameplay is more important than those feel-good moments to a majority of people.
And again, we deal with you playing media clips. Now, in this interjection, he actually goes on to play two separate ones. The first one being one of Super Mario Sunshine's commercials, which goes on for about 30 seconds. You see, Marcus, earlier when you played those clips, they at least added on to what you were saying. The main issue being that this was the easy way out for something you could have done easily yourself. This one adds absolutely nothing. Just you dragging out your already dragged out video.
I swear, if he didn't play those media clips and actually argued these things himself, he could have shaved off at least 10 minutes from his video.
It's funny. Wanna know what he does immediately after this?
Do tell.
But did you know?
More media clips!
God damn it, Marcus, this is why we can't have nice things.
And again, while this one may have something to do with your overall message, again, I could repeat my earlier argument about it making you come off as lazy.
Unique and interesting gameplay!
Yes, because doing quests like in any other RPG is considered unique, just like how Sonic is the true villain of Mobius.
Real?
No. Now, a part of me thinks that maybe you're only referring to the battle system given how different it is from most turn-based RPGs, which in that case you should have at least clarified, as otherwise your point here is very stupid to say the least.
Yeah, that must have been what I was referring to. Sorry about that.
Am I the only one getting deja vu from this? Like, I swear I argued this exact same statement earlier.
Spur is a yokai, with basically a ghost.
Jimmy, buddy, slow down. This is your biggest problem. That's all you know about yokai? They're essentially a ghost.
Well, I mean, he's not wrong.
Well, kind of. They're spirits, not essentially ghosts, if you know what I mean.
And your point is already about Zej Banyan. Yes, yokai are called spirits. You wanna know what else are considered spirits? Ghosts. The word is even a synonym for spirit if you take literally 10 seconds on Google to look up the word.
Actually, Ozzy, Marcus isn't technically wrong here.
Ha!
Shut.
Wait, what?
Well, you see, based on what I've been hearing, yokai for the most part are the souls of people or animals who have died, therefore qualifying as ghosts.
Actually that wasn't really what I was going for. Spirits are souls of dead people. It's not called ghosts. At least that's what my mom told me.
Okay, first of all, yes, if we're going strictly by definition, it only mentions humans as spirits. But since this is a work of fiction we're talking about, with animals and other subjects becoming more personified, that definition can extend to things that aren't human. Secondly, you just took your mom's word for it and called it a day? You couldn't even be bothered to verify that with your own research? Kinda selective on your research, aren't you?
But then you have yokai like Wazat and Dumbcap. Yokai who weren't the souls of dead creatures, but rather inanimate objects, given sentience after being discarded for some time.
Yes, you are correct. They're called Tsukumogami. I know this is filler, but I just needed to tell you that.
You know, suddenly the name Yuma Sukuma makes so much sense. Wait, what was I doing? Oh, right. By filler, you mean something that was unnecessary to say, and yet you said it anyway? The fact that it was filler didn't deter you puts into perspective a lot of other things you said in this video.
Oh my gosh, even Naruto doesn't have this much filler.
The fights in this game are bad. All you do is watch your yokai attack on its own, and then when the soulmate shit is full, you play this little touchscreen minigame, and then your yokai will do its special attack.
No. This is how the game works. It plays much different than a traditional battle system in a way that I felt was really unique.
Yeah, see, this is what I like. Interesting and unique battle systems, like Fire Emblem and Rockman.exe. I sometimes get bored of the same battle systems like Paper Mario and Mario & Luigi, so a unique battle system is what I thrive for. That's something that Pokemon can't do, because they're too primitive, like cavemen.
Please, for the love of Lord Emma, never do that again!
Or what? You're gonna summon the Risen? Summon the Faceless?
She's gonna summon me!
There is something about the game that does become annoying, which is its randomization.
The first one is the way you recruit yokai feels a little too random. Each one has a favorite food which you can give them in order to make them like you more after you fight them. However, there's still that chance that they won't join you after combat. Maybe I'm giving them the wrong food, or maybe combat has to be done a certain way. Either way, it's a little grindy to recruit specific yokai.
And this relates to how you fight in battles. How? Marcus, seriously, this point about the randomization of getting yokai is pointless as we're focusing on how you fight in battle, not how you get more yokai. But you mentioned the popularize ability and how it increases the chances of getting yokai. Maybe, but that wasn't to go on a tangent about how to get yokai. Rather, it was to explain how one can use abilities in battle to their advantage, as seen with the two abilities about not loafing and being unable to dodge. In fact, now thinking about it, the only thing where you could have gotten on about randomization is the abilities, since some of them do have a chance factor involved, like Insecure with its critical hit chances. But even then, that still wouldn't debunk the point that Jimmy should have explained himself more. If anything, it helps it.
But the randomization is actually one of Yokai Watch's charm. It makes it relatable because in life, you can't always be lucky.
However, this still doesn't change Jazzy's point, which was that the yokai randomization had absolutely nothing to do with how the battle system is, and your earlier argument that Pokemon games are primitive compared to yokai. And for frick's sake, she explained this right before you interject! Do us a favor and, I don't know, pay attention for us?
Randomization makes games relatable? You realize how I can apply this argument to Pokemon, right? Particularly with shiny hunting? Yeah, sure, granted, you're referring specifically to the befriending of the yokai to convince them to join your team. But the bottom line here is that you're saying randomization is relatable, and that's a dumb argument to make if you're trying to explain how Yokai Watch is apparently better than Pokemon.
Okay, I may not know where I'm going with this, but I am getting kinda tired right now.
So apparently being tired means you have every right to slack off in terms of making valid points. Also, he didn't know where he was going with this. Whitey, call up an Uber. This guy's lost and we need a more reliable driver.
Who you calling Whitey?
I don't see any other races around here. Now deal with it!
But I believe that there is another reason as to why there is palette swaps. And that is to save space on the cartridge. Now, yes, Yokai Watch is a very big game, but the 3DS can only do so much.
No, shut it. That is not an excuse. Considering how Sun and Moon and their re-releases have over 800 Pokemon, plus all of the shiny models, and can still be played on a regular old 3DS with very few slowdowns here and there should be no excuse as for why Level 5 goes the lazy route with some of the designs. Especially since, unlike Pokemon, where it's the size of the models that causes the slowdowns, Yokai actually makes the models smaller if needed, therefore saving on space for the game. This means that if Level 5 wanted to, they could add in more yokai with unique design, skills, and etc. without resorting to using old designs and either adding in a feature here and there, or swapping out for a texture.
Oh sure, like you know a thing or two about game development. Sure.
Alright, Flubber, you wanna go? So, palette swaps are just reskinned models, right? Well, fun fact, even though it's the exact same model, it's treated as an entirely separate one in the game's code to compensate for the palette swap. Shinies take up space in the game's memory too, as the game has to choose between the normal version or whatever, with the shiny version or whatever, whenever you encounter it. So there's virtually no difference space-wise when it comes to having a bunch of reskins versus entirely new models, unless the new models are significantly more complex. And even then, your argument boils down to, oh, you aren't a game developer, therefore you can't argue about game development. Like, do you know anything about game development? If not, your point automatically becomes moot. Not to mention, this doesn't even argue your point, so... Alright, that's it. I'm done. There are other things we could interject to, but we'd basically be repeating earlier points. Final bloody thoughts.
Okay, Marcus. Your attitude throughout this video honestly annoys me to hell back. You aren't exactly condescending, but you really act like one of those people who think of themselves highly for knowing more, and that's very embarrassing considering how freaking horrendous your points were overall. Not to mention, your dick sucking of yokai, which you call supporting, actually does more harm to the series than helps. If I didn't know much about the series, your smart ass probably would have decreased mine just by half. Baka. Also, I have to get onto your anti-Pokemon attitude because holy crap, I have never seen a mentality towards a fandom this fucking dumb. Seriously, has it never occurred to you that other circumstances might be behind the unpopularity of yokai? Hell, I can relate to your love for yokai. I'm into Dragon Quest, a series that many people have heard of in America but not many have played. But you don't see me going around claiming Final Fantasy fans are to blame as to why we don't get 10 in the States or why we didn't get 11 at the same time it came out of Japan. You wanna know what makes this whole video funnier for me personally? I had your exact same anti-Pokemon mentality when I was younger. When I was a kid, I was into Beyblade. My friends considered that game trash compared to Pokemon and never wanted to play Beyblade with me. So I grew up with the idea that Pokemon was overrated and garbage. Eventually though, I warmed up from that though. Wanna know why? That was a childish mentality, and I grew up from that. You should do the same, Marcus.
God damn was this video a chore to sit through. There's a god-awful presentation. Yours, well, grant you, is a slight improvement over the previous video of yours in this chain, is still terrible. Black and white borders where they have no reason to be looks a lot worse than just standard black borders, because that tells me you could have done something, but for some reason refused to, and that's just frustrating. Then there's your interjections that rarely argued anything, and the ones that did were either really stupid as they didn't actually argue anything Azelf was saying, or were flat out wrong. Like the amount of legitimate points in your video I could count on one hand, which is bad when you take into account just how long your video was. I wanted to cut out as much as I could because not even halfway through I was just so mentally done and wanted this to be done and over with. Because this video was such a slog to get through, especially with drawing the video out with media clips that had no reason to be there other than to make your video longer than it needed to be. And because you couldn't be bothered to say these things yourself. No, I'm not saying the very idea of using media clips is the bane of existence, but when you aren't even subtle about using them to argue for you, that's where we have a problem. Then there's the failed attempts at jokes you sprinkled throughout the video. What with keeping a similar tone throughout that made me honestly question what the difference was between you joking and you being serious. This was the most apparent with your distaste for Pokemon. Like, Jesus Christ, dude. It's fine if you prefer Yokai Watch over Pokemon, but to demonize an entire franchise and its viewer base because it's more popular than your favorite series is a concerningly toxic attitude to have. I don't even think the Fire Emblem fanbase compares to you in that area. And all of these elements come together to form one of the most frustratingly bad videos I've come across.
If you've seen my co-op with Lunatic I did a while back, you should have an idea who Marcus Yamamoto is. But to briefly explain to those unfamiliar, Marcus Yamamoto is a guy who makes a slew of different videos, but the ones we're worried about are his Yokai Watch related ones. Specifically, the response videos where he goes to great lengths to keep Yokai Watch alive. Somehow. This specific chain we're focusing on is one that was kicked off with Jimmy Wetzel's video, making a case of how Yokai Watch to him was simply a Pokemon ripoff. Natura made a video attempting to counter Jimmy's claims. Azelf commentated on it, Marcus responded to that. Azelf commentated on him, Marcus responded again, and then 3 different videos, made by PS4 fan, also known as Halo fan, Night Tie, and Lunatic and I came out commentating on that video, and now here we are with Marcus responding to all 3.
Jesus Christ, how are you gonna keep track of all those degrees?
Well, simple. Jimmy and Naturad's videos, along with Azelf's first video in the chain, just barely appear. So we only really need to focus on the part of the chain starting with Marcus's original video onward.
So the degrees would look like this?
There you go. Now let's get started. Before we continue, I'd like to point out that Marcus actually does give context this time around, which means he is applying some of the criticisms given to him. I bring this up because around the time I was writing this, people were convinced that he was a troll. While the fact that he is applying criticisms given to him and admits to making some mistakes with his previous video in the chain would be more than enough to disprove this, I really don't think it should matter if a person's a troll or not if they're making actual arguments.
Let me just remind you people that at least Yokai Watch doesn't get backlash or criticized by the mainstream news, or turn school playgrounds into the black market just for trading cards, or get ridiculed and insulted in parody shows, or get labeled as satanic regardless if it's true or not. And just because something is older does not make them superior, okay?
Actually, wouldn't Pokemon's age actually be a point against it in this instance?
What do you mean?
Well, back when Pokemon was in its heyday, the environment, at least in the States, was drastically different. Back then, you had a Christian-dominated environment that saw the very existence of the game as a spot of Satan.
Don't bring me into this, please.
Like, can you imagine what they would have done to Yokai Watch if it existed back then? Especially considering the fact that devil-like yokai such as Timmy Devil, Beelzebul, and Count Cavity are in the games. The fact that Yokai Watch is barely half a decade old, and came out in a time when people have become a lot more tolerant of concepts, like Ghosts and Demons Command to Battle by Kids, actually plays in its favor in this instance, because there's a lot less pushback from parents and media, meaning a lot less negative publicity.
Huh, go figure.
And if you want to make the argument that Pokemon is about friendship, yeah, sure, it's about friendship, because capturing wild fantasy animals, forcing it to bond with you, train them up to become a Mortal Kombat-style killing machine, just to become a master of everything, is considered friendship. Yeah, I believe it.
Don't have anything to say?
Well, I do, but I'm gonna wait until later when he brings this up again.
Any particular reason?
You'll find out when we get there.
Let's go ahead and address these 3 complaints. I'm sure this won't end up into some live stream event. That would be ridiculous!
Do you want self-fulfilled prophecy? Because this is how you get self-fulfilled prophecy.
Okay guys, today's commentary is on Yamamoto's response.
What? Yamamoto? Are you fucking kidding me right now?
It's bloody Halo fan, what do you expect?
It's been how long and that dude still hasn't thought of not sticking to his first take if he's gonna stutter this much?
Years, dude. Years.
Oh boy, what a joyous occasion. I'm smiling right now, if you can't tell, cause I honestly can't wait to do another response. Cause I just love doing this.
I'm totally smiling at this point. Either way, I only have 19 dislikes in my video.
Wow, this guy does not know what the word sarcasm means.
And I guess you didn't either, considering how you didn't catch that he was doing the same thing. He sucks balls at it, but you can clearly see the attempt.
God damn it, not again!
Just rolled it.
You know that boring stuff that you did, you could have skipped it, instead of fast-forwarding it.
Hey! I take pride in my fast forwardings, alright? Don't judge!
Okay, but Marcus, it's still grating on the ears, some more than others. Particularly people who are sensitive to high-pitched noises, hint, hint. Also, way to use another media clip there, mate. Like, okay, the use here fits a lot better than the ones used in the previous video, but man, if it still doesn't come off as forced.
What's he doing?
He seems to be fast-forwarding through stuff, but he's taking forever to get to the stuff he's actually fast-forwarding through to, I guess, keep it timed to the music?
So now he's using clips of himself to drag out his video?
Pretty much.
Why did you leave that whole entire part in the video? It just gives a padding.
Because it's relevant to the story, okay? Well, I guess it's not relevant anymore because it's kind of old news and I just decided to fast forward it. But that's not the point!
You can't honestly tell me that there was supposed to be some kind of story being told by keeping everything in that isn't even relevant to what you were going to say.
Honestly, statements like these make me think Marcus is legit insane or something with how little sense they make. Alright, so before we continue, you're going to notice I'm going to be skipping around a lot more in this particular segment of Marcus's video, and that's because a lot of the stuff PS4 fan says, combined with the back and forth in general between him and Marcus, is just insufferable. And while PS4 fan may not be technically wrong with a lot of his points, he presents them in a way that causes them to miss their mark. Almost like he watched other people who've said similar things to other people in the past, and regurgitated them, not realizing what made those points good to begin with. That, and I feel a lot of the points I could make during this segment would be a lot stronger if I made them later on.
And what I was trying to say is just don't judge a book by its cover!
Stop lying, dude. You were wasting space. Because you were actually saying that's a point that didn't bug any points at all.
You know, I'm actually starting to get fed up with this guy right now. Like, I actually want to punch him in the face. Look, dude, the point that I'm trying to prove is just don't judge something based on what you see firsthand, okay?
Firsthand? But the only thing you can experience something is firsthand.
What I think he means is that you shouldn't judge something solely by your first impressions.
So we're gonna chalk this up to shit wording?
Pretty much.
You know what, Gaijin, could you explain this?
The design of the yokai are both charming and accurate.
No, frick you, and frick your media clip.
You take that back about Gaijin!
You could have.
Would you please just actually make a good damn point?
I was making a good point, you dipshit! Gaijin was supposed to explain that the designs for the yokai resonate with Japanese history and culture!
Then that wouldn't be you making a good point then, would it?
And you know what? Let's argue how good the point was to begin with. In response to Azzy saying that Pokemon, Digimon, Yokai Watch derive from the same Japanese mythos, you start off by saying that yokai are real and use a clip by Gaijin explaining the cultural inspirations for Yokai Watch. Now what exactly does this prove? I don't know, but it's certainly not something that would hurt Azelf's argument, thus making it ultimately pointless to include.
But Azelf decided to be a little bitch and stomp him out! Why are you people not getting Japanese culture?
Marcus, the issue isn't that we don't understand Japanese culture. The issue is that you were using Gaijin as a lazy way out of explaining these things yourself.
Now, PS4 fans' interjection is pretty stupid, and it's pretty empty of an actual argument, in addition to being said quite condescendingly, which is something I've noticed he's been doing a lot throughout his video. But in general, saying that you were being lazy in this instance is the main argument being pushed.
I feel so conflicted. On the one hand, I get to use QB again, and on the other, I have to sit through this garbage for a third freaking time. Fourth, if you count the editing I'll have to do whenever I choose to put this out.
Yes, I too enjoy watching people suffer. That is, except when I'm suffering with them.
Hey, you haven't lost your mind yet, have you?
Like you haven't already?
Oh, I lost it a long time ago.
Kill the music!
Wait a minute, something isn't right here.
What do you mean?
This isn't the same version of the track you used in the original video.
Okay, why does that matter?
The natural order has been disturbed!
Is he okay?
Does he look okay to you?
Yeah, maybe back in times like the Edo period they were considered real. But that's because, like a lot of myths and legends, they were either used to explain things that seemingly had no explanation, or to frighten children into good behavior, or were just the embodiment of a silly idea.
I'm getting the vibe that this guy has never been to Japan before in his entire life, and probably does not deserve to visit the country considering how inconsiderate and weebish this guy is acting.
What?
Well, that came out of nowhere.
Okay, ignoring how I already argued against this kind of mindset back in my previous commentary on you, Marcus, how the hell is Night-Tie acting weebish here? By simply giving the reason behind why the stories of yokai even exist to begin with?
And inconsiderate? For what? Knowing the history behind the concept of yokai? Because he doesn't believe yokai actually exist? Whatever reason you have in your mind as to how anything he said here comes off as inconsiderate must be really entitled.
I'm not gonna deny that some people in Japan probably still do believe in yokai and tell legends about them, but you're forgetting one simple fact, Marcus. The premise of the Yokai Watch franchise is that yokai are invisible to modern day humans, and it's still unexplained how Nate could even see Whisper before he got the Yokai Watch. Yokai get away with causing mischief for humans because they can't be seen. Not without a specific tool, not unless they wish to be seen, or unless someone has a high level of spiritual awareness like the monks you talk to at the Fusion Shrines. There's also the fact that yokai in this franchise can evolve similar to Pokemon and Digimon.
Yeah, it's called promotions.
Funny, because it says evolve right here.
And even if it's called something different, doesn't change the fact it's a nigh identical concept. The subject has permanently transformed into a stronger version of itself.
I, honest to God, have no words to express how much of an immature, bratty man-baby you're being right now, Marcus.
Gee, have you ever met Sammy Classic Sonic fan?
So, that doesn't change the fact you're acting the same way, Marcus.
Also, that freezing in the recording. 10 out of 10 would freeze my nuts off again. And now we reach the third and final segment of Marcus's response. The part where he responds to Lunatic and I's commentary on him.
I imagine you have a lot to say here?
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially considering there are a number of arguments of his that carry over from the other two segments that I feel like I can more effectively tackle here. Especially given the context of what Lunatic and I had said. So if anyone wonders why I waited until this segment to cover many of these arguments, you know why.
Target sighted. Yoink! Ow! Hey, that beetle's mine!
That is not a beetle, that is a cockroach. And Goku did you a favor by smashing it with his back.
Wait, that wasn't a beetle?
You want this beetle? You gotta do something for me first.
Okay, like what?
You familiar with Marcus Yamamoto.
I mean, kind of?
Yeah, you know, that popular YouTuber who makes videos about Fire Emblem, Yokai Watch, Rockman, Spider-Man, and other things Japanese related, as well as his amazing and theatrical compilations that he puts a lot of effort into? He's awesome! I want him to sign my forehead!
So I actually had to take a look at the channel to see just how he has that many subs, since a lot of his videos hardly ever seem to break the couple of hundreds range for views. Then I saw that his most popular videos, by far, are his Fire Emblem comic dubs.
Do you really have room to talk, though? Your most popular series is you recording yourself and other people playing a children's card game.
First of all, there's a lot more that goes into that than some people would like to believe. Secondly, well, yes, I can kind of relate to the guy, as my most popular series garners at least 10 times the views my other content does. That doesn't change how the revelation is.
Hey look! I beat Sonic Forces for a third time!
Who the fuck plays Sonic Forces? That's such a garbage game.
Yes, hello. Person who bought the game day one and actually quite enjoyed the experience while playing through it the first time. You may now proceed to ridicule me.
Kill the music!
Bloody hell, the black bars are still there!
Are you guys really making a big deal about a minor issue? You're so pathetic.
If you couldn't tell by the delivery of that line, I was making a joke. That said, yes, there was an underlying criticism there. That being how your visuals bloody sucked. Is it petty? Maybe, but that doesn't make the criticism any less valid. Also, people better not dare use this as an excuse to open up the can of worms that was hashtag Black Borders Matter. Again.
He also changed the jingle again. Guess he recognized that it would have gotten repetitive to hear it over and over again. That said, I can't help but notice the fact that everyone he's responding to had something to say regarding this avatar change of his.
Okay, first off, what in the actual fuck am I looking at here? I mean, you said that you actually agree with her. Then after that you said, oh hey, I'm gonna change my avatar. That's just so random. If you're gonna do this next time, just do it at the beginning of the video.
I want the 3 minutes and 10 seconds of my life back. So you play that entire part just to build up you changing your avatar, which I can only assume was a picture of Mega Man that you drew yourself. It would have been better if you just addressed Assie's point and changed at the start of the video, rather than make your viewers sit through the entire scene.
Oh. Okay. We spent nearly 3 minutes of your video waiting for you to interject for this. You know, this is where my point about cutting crap out comes back into play. For a moment where all you do is just say, I agree, and change your avatar to DOS-looking Mega Man over here, you really didn't need to have Ozzy's 1 minute of explaining what the video was about play through.
And looking at all these side by side, one thing is clear. Marcus shouldn't have let the video play out simply to change his avatar. However, I noticed that you and Lunatic were the only ones who didn't tell him that if he was going to do an avatar change, to do it at the start of the video.
Well, that might be because I disagree that he would have to do it that way. In fact, I'd argue if he did it that way and brought it up, I'd still have an issue with it, because it would be him bringing something up that would ultimately just be wasting time to say. Honestly, the very idea of switching avatars mid-video isn't that big of a deal, provided you make the reason for the switch clear. However, the reason it doesn't work in Marcus's case is he makes the switch solely in response to Azelf's complaint.
I swear, there is no goddamn reason why choosing what images you put on screen at any given time should be such a nuanced argument.
Welcome to the CC, Hollow.
Also, this design. No disrespect, but we really playing Mega Man DOS up in here.
Hey! I like to see you try to draw a better Mega Man, okay?
Alright, fine, I will. There you go.
Didn't he challenge Lunatic and not you?
Well, do you see him here?
No.
Well then, there you go.
Okay, while the overall concept of yokai are not made up unlike Pokemon or Digimon, yeah, Marcus. Yokai, a class of supernatural monsters, spirits, and demons in Japanese folklore. Remember that last line. Folklore. Folklore. The traditional beliefs, customs, and stories of a community passed on through the generations by word of mouth. Now, nowhere in this definition is it stated that folklore isn't real, but to be clear, folklore is usually used in a sense where it is implied that something isn't real.
But it didn't say folklore was fake! So that means it could probably be real.
The fuck are you going on about? Folklore can't be fake in the sense that it exists, sure. But here's the thing. Folklore are stories, meaning events that are very likely not actually real, put together to create an attention-grabbing narrative. And to go back to the definition itself for a minute, beliefs can be based on things that aren't actually real. Like I can believe that I'm not actually dead, but as was clearly established...
That would be denial, bud.
Also, ever heard of, I don't know, urban legends?
Oh boy, does that argument only make your case look worse. Look, urban legends are simply the modern equivalent to folklore. They're even stated by definition to be fictitious in nature, and are simply presented as though they are true.
That's what she said.
Oh, fuck you.
No, fuck you.
No, fuck you! Also, if anyone makes this a channel, I'm gonna bust a cap in their ass.
Have you ever even read the Yokai Watch manga? Or watched the Yokai Watch movies?
What does bringing up those things even have to do with what Azelf said? If we're talking exclusively about the games, then the manga and movies would be irrelevant to the discussion.
This is not just the game. This is the entire series. Okay?
Since when? At no point in this chain until you came in was this about anything but the games. The main point of discussion were the mechanics of the game. Granted, you also sidetracked into talking about Mega Man and Street Fighter, but the main discussion was about the Yokai Watch games.
No, I'm Rockman.
No, we are not doing this again.
Yeah, you wanna fucking fight? Bring it on! I got metal blades for days!
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna be a problem.
But Axel is a robot!
No, Axel is a Reploid. A new type of Reploid. And yes, I know that because I did my research. I'm not big into Mega Man X, but at least I did my research!
Marcus! No! I need to point out how a Reploid is basically the same thing.
Yeah, I can tell. They have never played a Mega Man game before. And that is a huge shocker.
Okay, first of all, way to cut him off as he was about to explain himself. Second of all, we're arguing definitions here. And Lunatic even mentioned the story of the games to back up what he was saying. Get out of here with that noise.
Now, what's wrong with this picture?
That you watch your anime via somewhat sketchy means?
No. This is about the anime unable to be streamed to a wide audience. And plus,
desperate measures have to be taken, man.
A total of 192 episodes and 2 movies completely unsubbed.
And just how are we supposed to draw that conclusion with the information conveyed?
This is about the anime unable to be streamed to a wide audience.
Okay, first of all, that is really bloody vague, dude. Who's this wider audience?
Honestly, if it's on the internet, that's the widest audience it's gonna get. As anyone who has access to the internet would very well have access to those streaming sites.
And even then, like I stated before, something which you cut out by the way, your evidence for this really doesn't hold up considering that the only episodes in that list that were unsubbed were the most recent handful of episodes. If it was really as many episodes and movies unsubbed as you claim, you better damn well show that evidence. And I know this wasn't a thing when Lunatic and I's video came out, but the Yokai Watch English dub is getting resumed. So now it's going to continue to get that wider audience you keep going on about.
Okay, I get it. Pokemon is popular, but what about Yokai Watch? Give Yokai Watch a chance to shine.
Alright, I'm gonna stop your tangent right here. There's a completely valid reason why Yokai Watch has been overshadowed by Pokemon. Both games are published on Nintendo devices. Take the average consumer. Since the games are very mechanically similar at face value, they would likely assume it's some cash grab Pokemon clone and therefore won't touch it. This is especially the case here in the States with how Yokai Watch had quite the rocky start. The bottom line is that Nintendo is cannibalizing the sales of Yokai Watch because its main series titles are being launched on the same device as Pokemon, the 3DS. At the end of the day, it's a result of some poor decisions in marketing combined with consumer consensus.
Okay, stop right there. No, Nintendo has nothing to do with this, alright? They have nothing to do with this whatsoever. They are not responsible for Yokai Watch. Level 5 is Pokemon is trying to destroy every video game series!
Except Nintendo is their international publisher and has been since 2007. The responsibilities of marketing fall heavily on them due to being the publisher. And since the effectiveness of a game's marketing plays a significant role in its success, one could see Nintendo responsible for not marketing in a way that made it appealing enough for the consumer to purchase. Also, it really irks me that you still have this dumb mindset when it comes to Pokemon just because it so happens to be more popular than Yokai Watch. Like, seriously, just how is Pokemon trying to destroy every other game series? I legit cannot wrap my head around this line of thinking.
You know, it's people like this who give their respective fandoms a bad name. Except the Fire Emblem fandom. That one was already pretty bad without the help of Marcus here.
It really isn't anything to get worked up over.
Why though? Legit, what's the point in getting so worked up over it? Just because the game isn't as popular as Pokemon doesn't mean that it still isn't popular in its own right. It's super popular in Japan. And even taking into consideration how well Yokai Watch performed over here in the States, it has a considerably big following here too. I mean, it had to be popular enough for both Jimmy and Nitro to talk about it, right?
No, you can't love both things. You can only choose one. You have to pick one over the other. Because that's life. There is no in-between or both. There's only one.
You can like two things the exact same.
No, you cannot!
Boy, I seriously hope you're joking. But even in spite of that, for a majority of those examples, you can buy both games.
But you have to pick one favorite, alright? One favorite!
And for the Mario vs. DC and Mario vs. Sonic examples, you can like both.
Oh, you are so naive. Now, the Marvel and DC topic, I'm gonna have to discuss that in another video. But overall, you have to pick one favorite.
Lunatic and I went over the idea that while yes, you can have a favorite, having a favorite doesn't mean you can't also like its competition to some degree. I say it like that because some of those examples weren't exactly competing with each other in the traditional sense. The way you went about that tangent gave the implication that by liking or having a favorite in one, you couldn't like the other one at all, and that just isn't the case.
Also, nice hack job for the context, bud. While I can appreciate that you're making an attempt to make sure this video isn't nearly as long as it could have been, had you used your older style to respond in the videos, deciding what exactly to cut you're going to need to work on. Because cutting in this matter comes off as you potentially cutting out important statements that would affect the validity of your argument.
Also, why did you use the Japanese version of the coin reveal trailer for Smash 4 when the English one was readily available? Ignoring the fact that this is you essentially playing a media clip for the sake of playing a media clip?
Because I'm Japanese, and Melkorn is canonically Japanese. Are you questioning my nationality or something?
Okay, still doesn't explain the use of the clip to begin with.
There's no room for friendship in Pokemon!
You know that most yokai in Japanese mythology are evil, right? Or at the very least mischievous?
Not every yokai is evil or completely hostile. There are thousands, probably thousands of yokai that are 100% harmless and won't even hurt a fly.
Thousands? Okay, since I happen to be a guy who goes to great lengths for research, unless you have some form of source to back that up, from what I could find, there's like 100 or so at most. If we're talking about the games, first of all, the number would still be less than 700. Secondly, I made it very clear I was talking about the mythology these guys come from. Even then, in the games, there are a ton of yokai that hide in alleyways and other dark places that will attack you for trespassing. Wouldn't hurt a fly in my ass.
I can name a few examples. Karakasa Obake, Bakezori. Come on, man!
For Pete's sakes, can you not do 30 seconds of research?
Okay, gonna tell me who those yokai are? No? Well, geez, man, if you're gonna claim I didn't do any research, why would you assume I know the names of two specific yokai that are supposed to be harmless? And even then, I did say mischievous, meaning that while some may not be inherently evil, that doesn't mean they don't do bad things. Bakizuri disturbs people's sleep, and while you could make an argument for Kasa Obake, there's a lot of evidence that suggests that it was created by storytellers, and isn't even a quote-unquote real yokai. They also represent haunted houses, which aren't exactly friendly.
By the way, don't think we haven't noticed that you've been using an excessive amount of Tetronic clips. While they're only like 5-second snippets at most, they're still used as arbitrarily as when you use the Gaijin clips in your previous video in the chain, as they're essentially speaking for you.
Not to mention, friendship is one of the main freaking themes of the Pokemon franchise.
Yeah, sure, it's about friendship, because capturing wild fantasy animals, forcing it to bond with you, train them up to become a Mortal Kombat-styled killing machine, just to become a master of everything, is considered friendship. It's not like I have to feed them a specific food in order for them to become my friend, or at the very least be helpful by completing their request. That would be ridiculous and a complete waste of time and money!
Okay, even if we ignore that bit you cut out from my original video, where we went into a little more detail of how the whole friendship thing in Pokemon is a pretty integral part of the anime, along with an applicable concept in the games for reasons I already explained to you, you do realize that there are items in the games you can feed your Pokemon in order to increase or decrease their friendship level. Also, there's a handful of side quests in the games where you can help people out with stuff. Let me name off just a few examples. Lost Meowth, where you retrieve a trainer's missing Meowth. Elderly Man's Friends, where you gather a lonely old man with some of his friends scattered across town. Inspirational Stories, where you give a kid confidence by telling him your exploits throughout the game. Wedding, where you help convince the father to let his daughter and her boyfriend marry. That one side quest where you give an old guy a level 1 Pokemon so he can pass away happily. These are all from Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, The Last first one being from the previous game, sure, but it's still you helping NPCs with their problems in Pokemon games. So yeah, get bent.
I will never stop!
They can, actually, and the only reason they don't seem to be is because you're making a fuss about Yokai Watch not ending up as popular as Pokemon.
No, you cannot pin this on me, okay? I did not start this war. I did not ask to start this war, okay? Jimmy started this war. The Pokemon community asked this war, okay? This war will continue on until Pokemon has died.
Except, you know, you're the only person calling this a war and treating it like such. Oh, you didn't start, whoop-de-doo, but you sure seem hell-bent on finishing it, regardless of how arbitrary the whole thing was to begin with.
Seems like this guy's been spirited by Blazion. Only reason he'd refuse to give up.
Alright, so since Marcus ends up cutting out a bit of context, I'm gonna briefly play it before we get into this next bit.
I believe that there is another reason as to why there is palette swaps, and that is to save space on the cartridge. Now, yes, Yokai Watch is a very big game, but the 3DS can only do so much.
No, shut it. That is not an excuse. Considering how Sun and Moon and their re-releases have over 800 Pokemon, plus all of the shiny malls, and can still be played on a regular old 3DS with very few slowdowns here and there should be no excuse as for why Level 5 goes the lazy route with some of the designs. Especially since, unlike Pokemon, where it's the size of the models that causes the slowdowns, Yokai actually makes the models smaller if needed, therefore saving on space for the game. This means that if Level 5 wanted to, they could add in more Yokai with unique design skills and etc. without resorting to using old design and either adding in a feature here or there, or swapping out for a texture.
Oh sure, like you know a thing or two about game development. Sure.
Alright, Flubber, you wanna go? So, palette swaps are just reskin models, right? Well, fun fact, even though it's the exact same model, it's treated as an entirely separate one in the game's code to compensate for the palette swap. Shinies take up space in the game's memory too, as the game has to choose between the normal version or whatever, with the shiny version or whatever, whenever you encounter it. So there's virtually no difference space-wise when it comes to having a bunch of reskins versus entirely new models, unless the new models are significantly more complex. And even then, your argument boils down to, oh, you aren't a game developer, therefore you can't argue about game development. Like, do you know anything about game development?
Yeah. It's to be mindful about the hardware limitations and what a system can do. Of course, not overload a hardware with too much content. I think that's pretty important. Otherwise, your game is gonna slow down and lag and probably crash.
And Azzy in her second video in the chain, along with my tangent, explained how your perception regarding the game's development and limitations is absolute bunk.
Considering we're essentially at the end of the video, you want to get on to your final thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'll do that actually. Alright, so Marcus, while it would be incredibly stupid to say you haven't improved from the last time, as I've seen many of the criticisms of me and Lunatic made towards you being applied in this video, as you can tell, was riddled like Swiss cheese with issues. Firstly, like in the first video, much of your interjections boiled down to the utter nonsense that, while doing a better job this time around actually arguing things people were saying, oftentimes still didn't. The worst cases of this were when you were essentially deflecting the criticisms that were being made towards you, like how your editing in the previous video of yours in this chain was utter shite, and how fast forwarding the video in the manner that you do is incredibly grating to listen to, and winds up padding out the video in a way that makes the video longer than it needs to be, the latter of which I'm going to get back to in a moment. Then there were the attempts at humor that were oftentimes that utter nonsense I mentioned earlier. Like, okay, you're trying a lot harder now to make your own jokes, and I honestly commend the effort, but I'm having a really hard time seeing what's supposed to be funny about a lot of these, as most of them didn't really have any kind of build-up. In fact, the ones that actually did get me to chuckle a little were the ones that did have that build-up, but there was a criminally small amount of those amongst the sea of other jokes that you made that, well, didn't really feel like jokes at all. Getting back to the fast-forwarding complaint, I can see that you did a lot more skipping around this time around, and while I thank you from the bottom of my heart that you did that, otherwise this video of yours could have easily been over an hour and a half. Like Holloway said earlier, you need to work on what exactly you're going to skip or cut, because the last thing you want is to come off as disingenuous because you cut out part of a person's argument that could have potentially made your own arguments weaker. Something that's really easy to confirm when you link the source videos, which is why people in the CC do it to begin with. Then, to bring up that whole mindset of yours regarding Pokemon, no one here is discrediting you for having a great passion for Yokai Watch, but you gotta understand that literally demonizing fans of Pokemon, over reasons that ultimately shouldn't matter at the end of the day, isn't gonna have people looking at you in the most favorable light. Again, Yokai Watch, while not being as popular as Pokemon, is still quite popular. In fact, it's coming back into the limelight with one of the spin-off games coming to the West, and the 4th installment in the main series being announced for Switch. And like I mentioned earlier, the English dub for the show is continuing. The series is likely going to be going through its best period in the next couple of years, so you're gonna get your wish. In conclusion, yes, this video is still pretty bad.
bad, very much so. But you've shown me you can improve, so I'm hoping you can continue to do so.